This is Wade Major of the DigiGods podcast. We have a great little interlude episode this week. We're going to be talking to writer-director Nick Richey about his new film, 1-800-HOT Night, which opens theatrically on November 4th and has had quite a good festival run so far. It appeared at the Santa Barbara Film Festival and also at the Deauville Film Festival in France. Nick, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I think this film has so much going for it, not just as a film, but also in terms of setting a pace for what independent film looks like for the next few years as we come out of the pandemic. Talk to us just for a second. This is your second film. Talk to us about the evolution of this movie, how you got the idea, and how how it actually came together.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on the show. Really excited to be talking with you today about it. And essentially, I did my first film, Lolo, wrote and directed that, very low budget, $250,000 movie. Came out of that and was, I had a show picked up at ABC Studios in the interim between Lolo and this next film, and was pouring all this work into this TV show, and then it just didn't get picked up, right? It didn't get to series. It didn't find a path. And you do all this work on the TV side, and then if it doesn't go, you just feel like you're back at square one. There's no, you feel like someone's just like throwing you out of the emergency door of an airplane, with no parachute. And so I was sitting at home with my wife, middle of the pandemic. As you know, we're all going a little stir crazy. We're in an apartment, by the way. And so not a lot of room to run around. And I said, we gotta do something. I can't live in this city and not be making, something creative. I can't survive like this. And so at the time we were, trying to buy our first home. And we had just enough for a down payment. And I went on a walk with Allie one night, who also, plays the Ava, the phone sex operator in the film. And I said, what if we took our down payment money and didn't buy a house, but put it into a movie and made a movie? And being the amazing partner she is, she didn't blink. She said, yeah, I mean, what else are we doing here if we're not going to make movies? So I had this idea. I'd written an essay, I don't know, maybe 6 months prior about this phone sex operator I used to call. And that sort of was the initial seed of the script. And I knew that was going to be the opening scene. And it kind of just blossomed from there as I decided I wanted to explore my childhood through these three boys in the film.
And I mean, this is a really, really, it's more ambitious than Lolo. I mean, Lolo was primarily in one location for the most part. I mean, you had a very controlled environment there to be able to make a low budget film. But here you're not just dealing with a more expansive story, bit of a road film, but you're dealing with nighttime locations. You're dealing with kids. You're dealing with a lot of things that are logistically really challenging. And to sort of outline the story, I mean, it's about a kid who winds up through, I don't want to give too much away, but it's about a kid who basically winds up on the street through in the wake of tragic circumstances. And it almost becomes like an allegorical journey with this kid and his friends at that point. Talk a little bit about how that story kind of came together.
Yeah, well, first off, to confirm what you were saying earlier, it was a much more difficult process shooting this in Lolo when I thought I was going to make it easier on myself. And we can get into more of that in terms of just shooting with minors at night, et cetera, and how difficult that is. I have some advice to give to anyone out there thinking of doing this. And the advice is don't do it. Shoot a daytime movie. You'll be much better off. No, I always look back at my childhood and think, and I think there's these different times where you come of age, right? And one of those times is where you truly kind of leave adolescence, true adolescence, and where I was looking back and exploring some of the moments I saw, and in traumatic moments for me as a kid, there's things that I saw when I was 5 or 6, things that I saw when I was 8 or 9, 12, 13. And so one of the things that I wanted to do in the movie is see if I could condense this timeline down to one night, right? Just one 6 or 7 hour period in these boys' lives, and have the audience really watch in real time as they cross that threshold into adulthood. And it is an Odyssey film in that way, where I was trying to, is sort of using the save the cat parlance, sort of a golden fleece, sort of structure where they are encountering certain obstacles, and those obstacles, push them further. As they learn something, they get closer to that adulthood. And I think part of the movie for me is a little bit of the sadness of that, the mourning of that, where you would be able to look and say, yeah, they look a little too young for this. Why they shouldn't be having to go through this right now. And could I present the audience with that, sort of emotional journey, while at the same time feeling like there's still hope, right? I think a lot of indie films fall into the trap of like, we are going to be bleak, and I'm committing to bleak.
No, it's true.
Yeah. Anyway,
talk about Dallas, your lead, Dallas Dupree Young, who I think is just an amazing young actor. Where'd you find him?
All credit for that goes to Jeremy Gordon and Nicole Doro and Shayna Sherwood, our casting directors. They were fantastic. They've worked in, I believe, like kind of the Nickelodeon casting space before, done some more, youth-oriented shows. So, to just a funny anecdote, when Allie and I first thought we were going to make the movie, we were like, we're going to make it for nothing, $60,000. Let's just go in and make this thing on the streets, and we'll just cast people ourselves. So we put out a casting notice on our own, and then a bunch of like 35-year-old men were auditioning or like submitting themselves to play 14. And we said, no, okay, we're going to hire a casting director. So we went to Jeremy, and it was interesting because, Dallas plays the lead, POV, the lead character, but there's two sort of co-leads in the film, played by Mylan Bradford and Garrison Machado. And we actually found them first. I was so picky about the role of Tommy, and there was a few kids in contention that were really good, had some really naturalistic acting skills. And then Dallas auditioned, and I just knew it. I was like, oh man, this kid's, and you're doing it all on Zoom, by the way, right, Wade, which is already a little bit difficult because you're missing that interpersonal, like, they're right in front of you connection. And Dallas, still on Zoom, blew us away. We still had to put him through another, callback. So with the boys on Zoom and see them together. But even on Zoom at that point, you still feel like you're taking a bigger risk not having seen them in person. And so we did a meetup at a miniature golf course before. It was the only meetup we could have because of COVID protocols. It was just totally voluntary. Everyone had to wear masks. And we met at a miniature golf course, the miniature golf course we shot on, actually. And then getting a chance to talk to the boys there and spend some time with them just confirmed everything. I feel so lucky that I have all three of them in this film. I hope they remember me when they move on and do these bigger and better things, and they come back and get in the sandbox again.
I'm sure they will. It's I got a little bit of a Stranger Things vibe at a certain point, like Stranger Things without all the supernatural stuff. It's a good thing, which is a very good thing. You started to touch on this too, and I was going to wait a little bit to get to this, but let's talk about the challenges of preparing and making a film during the pandemic, which is already challenging for big budget films. We think of Elvis and Jurassic World and a lot of these films which had to shut down and restart. Mission Impossible coming out next year was another one of those where just millions and millions of dollars was added to these budgets in testing and in shutting down. And, the Batman had to shut down twice because Robert Pattinson got sick, and on and on and on and on. So, I mean, we look at those films and the trouble they went through, and indie films have just been saying, we can't afford to deal with this. We're just going to wait. We're going to wait a few years and not deal with it. You just jumped in with both feet. You prepared this. You did casting sessions by Zoom, and then you shot the film.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about what it was like, and were there any concerns that COVID might throw you a curveball?
Oh man, let me tell you, if one of the lead actors had gotten COVID, it would have decimated us. I mean, we had no money. So one thing goes wrong on this low budget of a film, you are in deep trouble. And I'm like selling, and we talked about it. I would like have to sell a car and use the money to pay for an additional weekend. So I kind of gamed it out where I said, okay, one of the good things about our movie is that a lot of it takes place outdoors. So you've got these COVID zones you've got to adhere to. Everyone's got to be in masks, crew masks and shields. And basically we were in a little bit of a lull, right? So there was like a COVID spike right before we started filming, and then it kind of came down a little bit. And so we were timed, we were timed well in that sense. And again, that's not up to us. That was just the universe aligning for the project. But we only shot on weekends. So we only shot Friday, Saturday, Sundays for 6 weeks. So 18-day shoot only on weekends. What that allowed us to do was only test once a week. So if you were shooting Monday through Friday, your team has to like test every other or like twice. And so my thought was, okay, if we only have to test, so we would have everyone test on Wednesday. And we couldn't afford like on-set testing. We didn't have the money for it. So everyone had to go to like a free LA testing center on a Wednesday on their own, accord.
Right.
Yeah. And they all played ball. They all did it, which is so amazing. And I'm so grateful to the parents. My goodness, like they also deserve all the credit, but everyone just helped in this. They went and did it. They would test on Wednesday. Results would come back Thursday. Upon achieving a negative result, you could come to set Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we just basically begged everyone, like, please just be safe Monday through Thursday. And our thought was, well, look, if somebody were to test positive, then we at least had a chance, because we were taking days off in between. There would be isolation on set. The cast and crew weren't together every single day. A lot of indie films are shooting 6-day weeks, for example. Lolo was 6-day weeks. So if one person were to get COVID on something like a Lolo type schedule, you're almost guaranteeing that everyone's going to get it. Whereas Hot Night, I was kind of doing a better job of spreading everyone out. And then it's just hand sanitizer and masks and shields and, hoping that no one got it. And we only had, luckily, one actress that tested positive, but she had never been to set. So this was her first day. She was about to come to set, and we get this call from her that she tested positive and couldn't show up. And I had been wanting to cast my friend Trace she's part of my little writers group that met up, weekly. She's an amazing musician, was just wanting to make the transition into doing some acting work. And she's just got such a great personality. She's a total crack up, dry sense of humor that I love. And I called her up and said, hey, look, I got this role. Would you want to come do it? She just, yep, I'll be there. Got in, got tested same day, rolled up, and did a great job. And she plays the motel operator that the boys try to like game for a room, and right. She did a wonderful job. So we lucked out, but I can tell you, Wade, as safe or as careful as we were being, so much of it was just luck. And had someone tested positive, I don't know what we would have done. I don't know how we would have dealt with that.
Well, it worked out. I mean, it definitely it definitely worked out. You rolled the dice and pulled it out. And you shot entirely on location in and around Los Angeles. Is that right?
Yeah, we shot all on location, kind of ranging from Santa Monica to deep Chatsworth. So it was the location process was, again, we didn't have like a location scout or manager, so I spent the month leading up to shooting. I was just driving I would, once the sun went down, I would get in my car and I would just drive aimlessly around Los Angeles and stumble across um, a nursery that had these like dinosaurs. I wanted there to be these kind of tableaus on the film where you're seeing these very childlike locations, but that they're sort of like, that almost feel like a fading memory of a like when the kids are at that baseball field, they're not getting to play baseball. There's no audience there. It's night. It's sort of, it's in the dugouts in disrepair. It's almost like you're seeing the faded youth when they're at the miniature golf course. There's a few people playing, but it's kind of empty, and they're not getting to play miniature golf. They've been 86 actually. So again, like sort of sending this message. They're kind of being like pushed out of their childhood. And so I was truly just driving around and jumping fences, certainly trespassing and finding locations around from the hours of like 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. for about a month. And that's kind of how I found all these little spots, and why it was such a kind of wide range in the city, that we were shooting in.
So let's talk for a second about this fascinating decision to do 6 weeks, 3-day weekends, which obviously worked out really well. Were there any drawbacks to doing that? And what did you do during the rest of the 4 days and the 4-day week in the middle? I guess what I'm getting at is, does that take you off your game in any way, or does that help you refocus? Because there's an argument that goes both ways, which is once you're in production, you got to be all in. And if you take too much time out, if you go on too long of a hiatus, everybody loses the enthusiasm, they lose the track. Is that this talk about the double-edged sword? Was there one?
Yeah. Okay. So it was partially a decision made because of COVID, and that we knew we would only have to have people test once. It was partially a decision that we were paying everyone such low money on the crew that it would allow them to work like music video jobs or commercial jobs Monday through Thursday to make up for the lost income that they weren't receiving from our project. And we had amazing people, people that believed in the project from the beginning, that said, "Hey, I'm going to do this for X amount of dollars a day." And in exchange, I was like, well, what if I scheduled it this way? And so these decisions were sort of coming together. The last thing, Wade, is, and I talk about this sometimes, like, I'm not directing a bunch of music videos and commercials. I would love to, just to get repetitions in, but I haven't found any ingress to that world. And so the only movie I've had the opportunity to direct was a movie I also helped finance and build from the ground up, which was Lolo. And we were shooting these 6-day weeks, and it moved so fast. I didn't have any chance, like you just said, to refocus and adjust and pivot. It was so difficult. And it was such an advantage on this movie. And I'll give you an example. The first weekend, we did all the kids together. So there's some spectacular young actresses that were also cast in this, and they're the same age as the boys. And there's these like Marco Polo pool scenes and the hot tub scene. And I thought, how fun would it be first weekend is all those scenes. So we get all these kids together and we get the energy up and the fun up. And we're shooting, and we finished day one, and I'm sitting there going, no way can we do this. There's no way. We don't have the time, because this is all exterior. We got to shoot at night. It's July, August. We're not shooting. We can't shoot. The sun's not down until 9, and I can't keep the miners on set past 12:15. So you're telling me I've got to shoot, 6 pages in 3 hours? It's insanity. It's not even, it's not realistic, And so that first weekend, I'm losing my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've made a terrible error here in my plotting. And I went home Sunday night after, trying to scrub the location. I'm sitting there sweeping, mopping, taking out garbage bags, as you do when you're like producing, directing, writing this movie. I get home, and Allie I'm almost like in tears, and Allie, my producing partner on it and wife and just partner in life is like, okay, we gotta talk about this. How do we adjust? And those 4 days in between ended up being a godsend between the weekends, because I was able to just take the lessons I had learned, sit back down. I mean, I'm pulling out graph paper, drawing new schematics, creating new shot lists, calling the actors. I'm going back it's giving me now time to go back to the locations and replot and sit there and go, okay, if I've only got 3 hours to shoot and I got my DP, we got to put the light here because we're not going to have time to move the light around. We need to create a lighting scenario that's maybe going to be more moody, but it's going to allow us, that extra 30 minutes. It was the best decision I ever made for this movie. And I think for my crew, because those 3 days were so grueling, even though we were only shooting 3 hours, we would get there. We still have a full day because we get there during the daylight. By the way, it's 100 degrees out, Wade, right? It's, of course, like the major heat wave hits. Everyone's just sweating, and we're having to, I'm rehearsing because I want the camera rehearsal, and we're presetting lights, hoping that, once the sun goes down, they're in the right spot. So and all that to say that people some respite. It gave the actors time to go back and do the work. This was, Mylan, Garrison, and Dallas's first feature films. So even though Dallas has had experience on the television side, here he is carrying a dramatic film. He's in every scene, and so I think it also gave them the beat to go back and do some more work and adjust. So it really worked to our advantage on this. I don't think it's a strategy for every film. I think, like you're saying, on a bigger film, I don't think you could do this because it would really be a momentum killer. Where for us, because it was so bootstrapped, I think we all needed the chance to go back, readjust, and then come back. And so I felt like we were just becoming sharper by the end.
That's great. Those are the kinds of stories that I think we all like to hear, where circumstances create a problem which you deal with, but the way in which you deal with it gives you added benefits you may not have anticipated. So the dividends, exceed all of the expectations. That's that's what we love about independent film, the happy, right? The happy accidents.
Yeah.
So, let's take you to the point where, the film is finished, and now the headaches of how are we going to get this into the world? How are we going to get distribution? And you always think festivals first. That's where your head always goes. And you have had such great festival exposure with this. Let's go there. Talk about that process just for a second.
Well, when you're kind of on the outside looking in, you feel like festivals are impossible. You almost don't believe you're like, programmers aren't real people. No one's going to watch this movie. What am I thinking? This is all just you're like standing outside of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and you're not invited in. So you don't have a choice. You just submit blindly. And I really, this time around, I really wrote some personal cover letters. And I just really told the story. I said, look, this is me. These kids are me. I was that boy calling this phone sex operator in a low income neighborhood, fighting for my life in some ways. And I think, I don't know if that helped. No one ever came up to me and was like, I read your cover letter and loved it or something. It was just, I'm saying that to say that I feel like I have this really like personal energy going into the submission process. And, the first festival where we did our world premiere was Santa Barbara International, and I've heard wonderful things about the festival, that it's well attended. It's in Santa Barbara, so of course you're in a cool, beach town, only an hour outside of Los Angeles, and it's pretty star studded. You can't kid yourself. It's fun to be at a festival where you're seeing Will Smith and Paul Thomas Anderson and Nicole Kidman, and so when I got the first email from one of the programmers, Ernie. I legitimately thought I was being scammed. I'm not even joking, Wade. I got this email. I woke up at, I usually wake up around 7 a.m. to do my first couple pages of writing. So I wake up to my alarm. I open my laptop, and I like to do those pages in bed. So I sit up in bed. I've got this pillow. I sit up, open the laptop, and I usually crank out 2 or 3 pages of writing first thing in the morning. Well, I opened the laptop and I made the mistake of checking my email, which I usually don't do. And I was, let's see what came in. And there's an email from Ernie at Santa Barbara International saying something about like, about the movie. I can't remember what it was. And I think my response was kind of curt and like, yeah, whatever type of, I don't believe you. He's like, and so I'm not joking. I fire this email off. I start writing and then it starts to dawn on me. Wait a minute. was that a real programmer? And one of my producing partners, Zach, is usually awake in the morning. So I text him and I got this email. It seems a little, Zach goes, no, Nick, did you Google him? He's a legitimate programmer for the festival. So I reopen the email. I'm like, Ernie, I'm so sorry. I was half asleep. This is amazing news. So what you find out, so then I meet Ernie, and Ernie's like, this was one of my favorite movies submitted. It reminded me of the 400 Blows. I just like,
oh, wow.
It was so fun to see a movie get made like this with kids. That's like dramatic. And I come from this background that it felt familiar to me. And all of a sudden you realize, oh no, there's people behind these festivals, and you're trying to just connect. You may or may not connect to them, but that really kicked off our festival circuit. And then we got to have this really beautiful experience, Wade, where, like you said, it was like the dream come true experience where, like, you're going to Oklahoma City to Dead Center, you're showing at Dances with Films here in LA, and that's just fun because now you're having a Los Angeles showing at the Chinese Theater Complex. My dream for the film was to get to show it in Deauville. I've always wanted to go to the festival. And then to get that email, from Jerome, the programmer there, that we're going to France, and to have to have these, and I'm still getting messages. Just yesterday, a message from this, French reviewer who said, this was my favorite movie of the festival. I just wanted you to know I posted my review today. And it was, or people on the streets coming up and watching them ask the boys for an autograph, and seeing Mylan and Dallas walking around France, signing autographs. It was the exposure, that word of mouth, that exposure, so spectacular. It's been such a gift for this movie. I just have so much gratitude toward the programmers and the festivals that have given this movie a chance. And we're actually closing. We're the closing marquee film for the Austin Film Festival on November 3rd, so that'll be our last film festival. And I'll be down there for that the next day we release. And tonight at 9:15 p.m. we're playing at the Twin Cities Film Festival, actually, which is really cool. So it's been a magical festival experience, and I hope it moves the needle in terms of just word of mouth.
Well, speaking of, we're contributing to that word of mouth here. So where can people see this and when? Give them a sense of the release pattern. And November 4th is the day. Is it going into how many theaters, how many cities, through what distributor? Kind of give everybody that sense.
So Quiver is our distributor, and then it'll be pretty much November 4th. It'll be available to actually watch, buy, or rent, on all the, TVOD, Amazon, iTunes, I think there's so many now, right? YouTube Premium, Redbox, you name it. And basically anywhere you can buy or rent a movie now in the digital world, you'll be able to get 1-800-HOT NIGHT. Right now it's already available for pre-purchase on iTunes. Okay. So people can, go and pre-purchase. We actually, so Quiver is only distributing digitally. So we retained our theatrical rights, and we're still talking about that. So it's kind of getting down to the wire, but we're having some conversations with some art house cinemas in various cities. We're at the Loft Film Festival at the famous Loft Cinema in Tucson, Arizona, which, by the way, amazing backstory, just a really cool cinema. If you ever end up in Tucson, I highly recommend going to the Loft and watching a film. Anyway, so we're doing that now. No matter what, November 4th, buy or rent on pretty much any digital platform. You can buy or rent movies. And then we are in the process of negotiating our foreign distribution right now. So we've got some really exciting offers starting to come in from different countries, whether it's South Korea, Germany, Latin America, France, UK. And I'm really excited for this film to have an opportunity to, reach an international audience. But that'll probably come, a little bit after the November 4th release.
Well, it sounds like it's everything's falling into place the way that people always hope it does with an independent film. I mean, the offers you're coming in those are magic words to just about everybody.
yeah.
That's what you always been hearing. Nick, thank you so much. It's just such an inspirational story, both the film itself and the story behind the film. And we wish you absolutely all the best going forward. This is Wade Major. I've been speaking with writer-director Nick Richey of 1-800-HOT-NIGHT. That's HOTNITE, for those who might want to Google the name. And we hope to be bringing many more such interviews in the future.
Thanks, Wade.